the non-Bitcoiners are lazy in the terms of self-custodianship. I'm convinced that Bitcoin is a good thing, and I'm even convinced that it will be something very good for humanity itself. If you're interested in Bitcoin and somebody's like, ooh, I'm interested, and you come to a 21 meetup, they're pretty sure like 5 people jumping like around you like little gnolls and yeah, sure, I will help you. And this is kind of a very positive spirit. I have a problem and you get help. It's kind of a religion without like a leader.
With a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility. With Bitcoin, you can transact with anyone. There's no one to stop you. But you can also send it to a wrong address. You can also make mistakes along the way. You can lose your keys, like that, all those things that happen. Even now, even though we had all those things in the past already, what will that do if that becomes more mainstream, or will it even become mainstream and we just build like banks on top of Bitcoin and most people will never do the self-responsible way?
Well, in my humble opinion, and the people that I like in my bubble, yeah, like the non-Bitcoiners, like or the pre-coiners, they are lazy, I think, in the terms of self-custodianship. And I get it. Like if I talk with people about orange peeling, you cannot forget to which person you're talking to. And what I do see here is like the Austrian area, the people that are new and have no idea about what Bitcoin could be, is they are used to have a bank. They're totally used that somebody else has the custodialship about their money. And even from the company perspective, we do offer Bitcoin accepted as a solution. But there, on the other hand, the other companies, the people inside, we have the same thing. They're totally relying on that, what we suggest. And some people are like, can't you do the whole hardware thing stuff? Because we are used to it. Like we are used that we pay money that somebody else takes care of some problems. So this, I think, will be a long way. Yeah.
We will come there, that every person, or like a majority of the person, has this self-reliable. Because the more I'm in Bitcoin, the more doubtful I'm getting. In the beginning, I was like, oh, like everyone will have self-custody, will learn how to deal with keys.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, oh, like you go to a Bitcoin conference, you ask people if they do self-custody, and like 50% of the now people that are on Bitcoin conferences, they're like, no, like I know I'll keep it on exchange, or I'll do this, or I have some other things, or have a multi-signature solution where someone else has more keys than me. Something like that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
not self-custody.
Yeah, I think this is like that's the current state we need to deal with. And as by the way, I'm convinced that Bitcoin is a good thing, and I'm even convinced that it will be something greater or something very good for humanity itself, because for all what it stands for. So like you should never get tired about like talking people to, yeah, but if you are at an exchange, yeah, how about having your own wallet? And even if it's, I don't know, like this plastic card wallets, even these is better, you know, when you need to scratch off the private key. Even this has kind of like the touch of self-custodianship and this rush of adrenaline, like, okay, I really have it now in my hands. And yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, that's interesting. What do you think it will change in the world, as you mentioned it?
What changed in the world? First of all, I think the Bitcoin bubble it brings a lot of people together who want to change something. And there's like a lot of, I think we Austrians have a culture of complaining a lot, like this is shit and this is bad, and a lot of finger pointing. It's fine. People can be that way. I like to deal more with people that go to the next step. It's like, okay, this is shit. What can we do? Change. What do we want to change? And even like changing the perspective of storing your value, like also Bitcoin on a technical level, what you can also do like for transfer of value. It enables the people like to be more creative and to don't be powerless. In the other hand, there are so many like topics and talking that people can actually do something. Okay, I know this is very abstract, but to be very concrete, in our company, we need new pullovers with our logo on it because we like that. And on the Bitcoin Citadele last year, we met like Nakamoto Stitch, a person who actually offers this, and he wants to do like get out of the fiat world more into the Bitcoin world, and he's trying his new thing. And this is kind of like more livelihood, more, yeah, more being alive, more trying to do something else out of your world. And I think sometimes if you are working in the traditional hierarchical like business world, you are kind of bordered. And if you're stepping into the other world, into the Bitcoin world, where you suddenly can try stuff, and you have a lot of support of people who are thinking freely and like, yeah, why not try it? And maybe you get advice from people too. You're not alone. There's something, I think it's changing. It's like you don't need to have like these paths. You can try to create something new.
Yeah, I love that, and it's. I mean, to a certain extent, I feel like we do have a very curated list of friends and people that we hang out to, and then it's like really interesting when you step out of the. Maybe you have a big family and you talk with people in your family that aren't close to the Bitcoin community. It's really interesting to see the difference there, or like you talk with friends that you haven't met for years, and you're like, oh, whole different mindset, whole different world.
Mm.
So I do hope that that changing narrative that we have now in Bitcoin also really translates in the world. The more Bitcoin spreads, and not just like to the early adopter group, because early adopter groups are usually way more, let's say, cooperative. They are way more risk taking. They are way more all those things that we associate with Bitcoiners. So I'm always questioning, like, is Bitcoin changing something, or are we thinking that Bitcoin changed something because we are in this early adopter group, and we think this Bitcoin group right now is so different to the rest of the world? Obviously, because have to be you have to have an ego death once you get to Bitcoin, because usually you saw it at like a tenth of the price before, and you thought it's a scam. Like, we go usually through the steps. Then you have to research it. Then you might lose it if you don't take care of it. Even if you have it on exchange, you might lose it because there are so many exchanges going bust in the last 10, 15 years of Bitcoin. So there's a lot of humbling experiences. There's a lot of steps you get towards. If you're now, since like years, a humbling Bitcoiner stacking sats, you have a lot of the same experiences with other ones. But what if the whole world comes into that? And that's where I'm like, okay, what will Bitcoin actually change? And yeah, I'm not settled on, on what it will be. That's why I'm so interested in what people think about that.
Mhm.
Really cool. Uh,
I
yeah,
totally
really.
agree. So I cannot argue or discuss with you this because I totally agree. There's this part of humanity, I would call it, like being a human and like helping each other, because it doesn't matter like what job you do. It doesn't matter what education you have. If you're interested in Bitcoin and somebody's like, ooh, I'm interested, like, and you come to a 21 meetup, there are pretty sure like five people jumping like around you like little gnolls, and it's like, yeah, sure, I will help you, and this is kind of like a very like positive spirit, like I have a problem and you get helped. Yeah, you get help. And this is so, I think, basic, basic. Somebody has a problem and another human being says like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, we can do something. Or you get, if it's technically like too deep, okay, you maybe get related to another person. And this is kind of like from a human point of view, like a good thing about Bitcoin. It brings people together because somehow we are looking in kind of the same direction, but what direction it is or what the end goal will be, nobody can know for sure. Yeah. But
Mm,
it's better like than we are right now, right here.
absolutely, I do agree with that. Um, I saw that 100K, and I thought like the 100K will be a huge stepping stone for Bitcoin, and I was kind of disappointed from the outside of Bitcoin world of the reaction. How did
Oh.
you? How did you see this huge milestone that we reached a few months ago?
Honestly, I have not given much thought about it. Of course, if you have an amount of your like life savings in Bitcoin, of course, if it increases in value, I think everybody has like kind of this feeling, okay, I made a good investment or this was good. But I try not to think about it. It goes up and down, and this like daily looking, I did it. It doesn't make you really happy. It makes you more, me, at least me, did more and more nervous and everything. So if Bitcoin hit the 100,000 K mark, I was like, okay, it seems like the whole research that I did and talking to people that I trust, that how they explain Bitcoin to me, it kind of comes to like comes to no, like it's getting true, you know. It's that what they said, it's becoming the future, and then the future is 100K and so on. But it's also the news that I read, what is going on the US. Even I don't have an opinion on Trump, but that he's like pro Bitcoin and everything. That in I think Canada, in Vancouver, they're like pro Bitcoin or thinking about something, doing something. Is so these are all like directions where like, okay, more and more people thinking about it, and yeah, the market is reacting to that. So of course it's going up, but in which time frame or up and down, I don't care. And I honestly, I try not to care as good as possible, because of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's totally understandable. What I was shocked about is how less, because the price is usually the best marketing tool for people outside of Bitcoin. That's what they usually know about Bitcoin. That's where the information of Bitcoin starts and ends, with people outside of Bitcoin, with the price, and maybe they know some small facts around it. So I thought,
Hmm.
outside of the Bitcoin community, it will have a way bigger impact. It will be a way bigger event for no coiners. Mm, a little bit like maybe 2017, where all of a sudden a lot of talk was around Bitcoin, way more than it is now. You can also see that with the Google Trends. Is like we're like halfway there. Maybe I can pull it up later, but I think we are halfway there from 2017 levels, which is crazy because we're now more than 5x higher. Is the general public like what price do we need to hit that the general public is like, oh, it's like now it's like at 200,000, the same kind of level that we hit in 2017.
To be honest, I don't think these are discussions that I have or that I want to have, because if I have, I'm mostly into the technology. So like
Mm.
global economy and this stuff, I'm like blank. Discussions kind of like, okay, I just can't believe you because I have not much knowledge there. So let's imagine I'm like at the family table or friends table, and somebody comes up like, hey, and like you got Bitcoin, so now you must have like rich or something. I normally block this conversation with, really, I don't know, I didn't care. I seed others. It's for me like a long store of value, so it can go up and it can go down, and that's where I'll normally leave the conversation. But what's interesting, what I'm interested is, if I'm talking to the other person, are you interested in doing something? Like, how
Mm.
do you see Bitcoin? That's where like I want to put my effort in. Yeah, that's where I want to put my effort, actually.
Interesting. What do you think is the most important thing in the starting, with talking with someone to educate them about Bitcoin? Like, there's so many different avenues you
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
take
yeah,
this
yeah.
in.
For me, it's like, I taught a lot different stuff, and the one thing that for me repeats is getting people into action. So if somebody is like on the edge trying to do something with Bitcoin, I normally do the offer. Do you want to try a regular savings plan? You know, and people are like, should I do that? And what's about the risk and everything? And what I normally do is, just for an example, a friend like, okay, he's interested, and it's like, okay, how about like 10 euros a month for a year? That's like 120 euros. How about you getting started like with Bitcoin and everything? And people normally block because they say, yeah, it's the risk, and I'm not sure what if the money is gone. I normally do them a one-time offer. It's like, yeah, like, okay, let's note the date. You do the savings plan, and I will ask you 1 year later if I should buy the Bitcoin back about the amount that it not Einkaufspreis, the cost
And
of.
the basic, the average entry price. I don't know how it's
Yeah,
called.
like I will buy it back. That's what they bought. So I taking them the risk complete out of the equation. And normally they're like, okay, so this means you're giving me a savings plan where after a year I can get like my money back and there is like no risk for me at all. So you have all the risk. And then, I normally do say nothing. It's like, yeah, that's what I think about Bitcoin, because 120 euros is a risk, that I can take. Maybe it's like 1,200 euros where I'm like, okay. But in the end, I do stack sats. And here at this point, it's just, a calculation my end when I like buy 1,200 euros like in Bitcoin and helping at the same time another person. I did this
Oh,
several times and all kept their Bitcoin.
it's more about not teaching them about Bitcoin, but more like getting their feet wet into Bitcoin and letting
Yeah.
them explore Bitcoin from there. Because if they have exposure, it's easy for them.
Yeah, bring people into doing. Like, of course, talk with them. Like, my major one point is like it's inflation proof. Yeah. And the rest of the market, I don't really get, but that's why it's going up and down. And yeah, the whole technical side, I can tell. I have the good thing is I'm in Graz, so I have a Bitcoin broker where people actually can go there with their passport, and have somebody there, a counter where they can buy the Bitcoin and don't do it online. And yeah, that's basically it. And I cover the risk, which is not a risk for me.
Wait, you can. Is it an ATM or like an actual desk?
Coinfinity has an actual desk where you can walk into like a front office, like where you can buy and trade.
Oh, I didn't knew that actually. I mean, of course, I know about Coinfinity, but I was not aware that you can actually go physically there and buy Bitcoin. Interesting.
Yeah. If you think about like the elderly generation, I hope you can say it that way, that are like not so in the digital realm, they go there and they have a number to call and they have a person they can talk to. And this is important. And normally these people also have like savings. Yeah.
Ah, interesting. Oh man, I talked to an elderly couple in Graz, and this would have been the perfect solution for them. Interesting. Yeah. So that I have to think about that next time. Maybe I tell them later when we stop recording. That's really cool. Do you remember how you came into Bitcoin and how you came across that thing of like because we have an end routine and I think
Yeah.
it fits in here really nicely.
Okay.
So we do it a little bit before that. The end routine
Hmm.
question today is like, what did you come to Bitcoin for and why did you stay? And I really want to get that end routine question today a little bit earlier in. So,
Sure. Sure.
what
Sure.
did you come to Bitcoin for and why did you stay?
Why did I come? I accidentally stumbled on Bitcoin because I have a major in game design and game development, and I saw blockchain games on the Binance chain. And I was partly as a developer and from the game system, I was interested. And asked like a friend from volleyball who I knew had like a lot of knowledge about cryptocurrencies. I did not know that he was like a pure Bitcoiner at that time, but he took the time and explained stuff. Then I like traded 50 euros, tried these things, and yeah, then I tried these games, and all what I saw there was basically how the players, and there's a system where the players could inflate the money that's in the game. Yeah, even if it's a shit token, they could inflate the thing. So the later you entered that game, the less money you could get out of the game. So this was a cycle that kind of continued. Like every game crashed after 3 or 4 months because some players knew how to withdraw the whole value of that system. And so that the token that they were working was getting worthless at some point.
Mm.
And I was reading in the developer blogs where they're like, yeah, they're like trying to balance the things out. And this is like, some were complaining. Some were, of course, like, this is like, snowball scheme and blah, 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 and everything. But I was more on the game perspective. Nobody could solve this. Yeah. Nobody could solve this kind of like, if you don't have new players bringing like new money into the system and others, trying to withdraw like on a regular basis the money, it wouldn't work. And that's where, like, with my beach volleyball colleague, I started like talking more and more and more about Bitcoin, and he was raising the flag about inflation. And basically then I was hooked. I talked with him, and then we founded the company together.
And that was what you're doing now in Bitcoin with Satoshi engineering.
Now we are focusing on like IT services, IT development for Bitcoin related projects. But what we noticed is we cannot do this the full time. So we are also taking projects which are not Bitcoin related. And if we have nothing to work on, we are trying to build stuff for the community. So we have the Lightning tip cards, which is an orange peeling tool people can use, because you can load it up with sats, and you can give it to a no coiner, and it has basically a small Anleitung, no?
Instruction.
Thank you. A small instruction manual, how, like, what is Bitcoin, how you can withdraw it from the card, and you get a pretty easy start from Wallet of Satoshi.
Is that the Lightning tip cards? Is that
Basically this is the Lightning tip cards, and it was the basic idea. We are at the restaurant, we want to tip the waiter in sats, but they don't have the time, to they don't have the time that we can explain what Bitcoin is. But you have these prepared cards, you give it them like for €5, for €10 in worth, and then maybe it's enough attention for them to start with Bitcoin. And if they don't withdraw, okay, then you withdraw the sats back and try it with the next waiter.
I
So
love that idea of tipping waiters because they are kind of the most grassroots spreaders of information out there. Because everyone goes to restaurants. Like I didn't meet any single person yet that was never at a restaurant, and usually most people go on a regular basis with friends, with partners, with whatever. And there's always a waiter that talks to you. So
absolutely.
if we orange pill all the waiters, we won the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, true. But it seems like that the community uses the tip cards also for different use cases. The Bitcoin block in Munich, they use these QR codes on custom flyers so that they can hand out flyers to people that are like stopping by. It's like, hey, you want to buy a coffee in tip card, because they have a whole Lightning community, like Lightning payment infrastructure there. But via the tip card technology, they get the sats on a wallet of Satoshi, and then they can buy their coffee. And this is again like a point I made before: bring people to use it. Like if somebody has a wallet of Satoshi and can pay a coffee with that, I think, in my observation, people are like, oh, that's easy. Really? I thought Bitcoin is more difficult. What? It's like that, People are like mind blown that it's so easy, because they have actually no clue, because there is no bank, there is not, nothing tangible. Yeah.
All changes once you get to use it. I actually had,
Yeah.
even last year, a huge breakthrough because I was never paid in Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and I was never paying anything really in Bitcoin except like Lightning, like a
Hmm.
small drink or something like that in a conference. But last year, with the Bitcoin podcast, I got sponsors that are also Bitcoin companies. So at first, I was so in my fiat mindset to like, oh, like let's set the payment system up. What do you need? Like, what numbers do you need? And for example, with Coin Vigilante, they are an American company. It's kind of complicated from America to Europe. You need
Hmm.
some how is it called, ACH numbers or something like that. And then I was like, why don't we just do it in Bitcoin? Like, is
Yeah.
that possible? I was like checking with my accountant. I was like, can I do it? And I was like, yeah, of course.
Hmm.
The unit of count has to be euros, but that's easy to put it
Hmm.
on the invoice. There's super easy tools like Seprite and a lot of other tools that you can use to facilitate that. I basically set it up in like half an hour, like
Hmm.
maybe 45 minutes, sent the link, and after 10 minutes, he paid, and it was a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
It
Agreed.
was super easy. And now it's like, and with all my sponsors except one, I do the Bitcoin payments. And once you experience that, or like this payment comes from America, it comes directly to my self-custody wallet. There's no bank to bank to bank, then from the bank to exchange, from the exchange to the self-custody setup. So like
Yeah.
just like direct. And that was a
Yeah.
mind blowing for me. Even though I was fully orange pilled, once you experience it,
I
it's
know.
a
Yeah.
different game.
I totally agree. The part of being, I guess you're self-employed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you're self-employed. So you're doing your accounting or somebody else, but you have an idea of your accounting. Um, this is like I love that you stumbled over that, but it's not magic. It's not rocket science. It's just talk one time with your accountant or explain it one time to accountant what it is, or like our accountant had to educate his company because we were like, okay, and now we are also receiving funds in Bitcoin and we have like a Bitcoin bank account. Yeah, we don't have like an online banking app, so we are doing the things by ourselves. But as long as it's like a beautiful looking PDF, our accountant is happy. He doesn't need like details like what's the UTXO and where are things lying around. No, they need to do like their stuff. They have like we are like under the Austrian law, so that's the regulation we're working with, and it's possible. And this is for me like the next step, like telling people also like on the business side, Bitcoin is no rocket science in your company, yeah, or being self-employed. Just do it. There is no much.
I partnered up with Coin Vigilante. This is the most beautiful Bitcoin timepiece that I ever saw created by anyone. Look at that beauty. I love it so much. Coin Vigilante made a perfect Bitcoin watch. That's the perfect, subtle, elegant way to go out there and show that you are a Bitcoiner. And that watch brand is Bitcoin only. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece, and make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. If you watch or listen to my podcast on a regular basis, I guess you already bought some Bitcoin. And now the most important step is to keep the Bitcoin. Keep them secure in a hardware wallet. My personal recommendation for hardware wallet is the BitBox. It's super secure, it's simple to set up. It's also a perfect gift for a friend who has still their Bitcoin on an exchange. And you can get a 5% discount with the code Robin at the checkout. Visit bitbox.swiss/Robin to get your BitBox. And the next step is to really level up your sovereignty as an individual. You have to have the most secure self-custody setup. You have to secure your own devices. You have to protect your privacy. You have to set up an inheritance plan. And depending on where you live, you even want to have a plan B, a citizenship where you can move in case something goes really, really wrong. And through all those steps, the Bitcoin way is guiding you through step by step. And if you visit thebitcoinway.com/partners/Robin, you even get a 30-minute free call to find out how you can level up your sovereignty.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a wonderful insight. By the way, do you think that Lightning will be number one for layer 2?
Honestly, I have no clue. Like, of course, we have our eyes open kind of for everything. Yeah. So we are like kind of, it looks promising, like what Liquid is now getting for a push forward. But in the end, I think it's a mix between what will be offered, like where can I pay with, yeah, and what is established. And Lightning also with like in the background with the eCash or Casio, what's going there, they already have a strong establishment. Yeah, they're known. It's working. Like every Bitcoin Citadel, I think, is everything running on Lightning. But let's see what there will be in the future. And one thing I like about the Bitcoin community, that it's kind of a freundlicher Wettbewerb.
Friendly competition.
Thank you, a friendly competition, because I could name like 3 companies who are like competitors, like in the Bitcoin realm. That's what we do. But when we talk with them at Citadele or like at the BTC Prague last year, it's normally more like, how do you do this? How do you solve like this regulatory problem? Or how do you do that? It's not so like, okay, you are getting like the suspicious eye because you're trying to get like company secrets. It's more like, okay, how are you doing this? How are you solving this? And okay, maybe we can work together. Probably not, because it's the same business, but in the end, we are both Bitcoiners, and that's also what I like. Yeah,
I love that. And probably it's mostly because it's such a fast expanding market. Like if you look at the hardware wallet market, for example, most Bitcoiners don't have a hardware wallet. So
are you sure?
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Okay.
if you look at not like if we look at conferences, there's probably like, I don't know, like 50-60% of the people maybe have a hardware wallet. At a Bitcoin Citadel, probably 100%. That's a different kind of a conference. But I was at Abu Dhabi, whole different Bitcoin world, and there on the main stage, there were like 8,000 people in total there. On the main stage with like 4,000 people in there. Okay, who has the coins on an exchange? 50% put their hands up. Like, who does not have self-custody? Something like that was the question. And I asked around, and a lot of people don't have self-custody. And Treasurer made some market research. They are saying that when we account for everyone that has somewhere Bitcoin, like on exchange or like on some, you can even like Cash App in America, you can have Bitcoin and stuff like that. When you account for everyone, there's maybe like a 3% or 4% adoption rate of hardware wallets and self-custody in that sense. Hardware wallets, it was not self-custody, it was really like how many have a hardware wallet. So I'm like, the market for hardware wallet manufacturers is the biggest one to grab for those who don't even know about hardware wallets. Not why is my hardware wallet, why is a Treasure better than a Ledger or a Ledger better than a BitBox? It's more about like getting to those people that don't know any of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point that I wanted to make is because we're living in such a fast expanding market, I think a competition is kind of let's help each other. I don't know. And podcasters don't really have competition to each other. But for example, I talk a lot with Rajat Soni. We have like every few months, we're just talking of like, I show him my analytics, he shows me his analytics. We share like what we've learned the last months, how we can grow faster and expand the Bitcoin message out there on YouTube better. And you could say he's a competitor of mine because he also does YouTube videos. but we don't see that way. We want to grow together. We want to build, like, we are digital soldiers on the Bitcoin side, and we are fighting a war against fiat and not against each other. So
Yeah.
in that way, we are a big community and we are all working for the same company.
Yeah, or even or the same vision. I think that what kind of is unique, that most of the Bitcoiners, even if they don't know, some I think they don't know, but they are kind of investing their time or the energy. I wouldn't say they are fighting. Yeah, I would say they invest their time and their energy for a better future, and whatever that is. And I think some really are enjoying this passion, and we can move something, we can do something, even if it's just, talking. And like you talking with your competitor and comparing and like see what's working. This is like from a company perspective, that's what you should do. You should like question what you do and reviewing and changing maybe something. That's what we do too. Yeah, that's great. And even greater if you have somebody in the same field as you. Okay, it's not the colleague, it's not the same company, but it's under the same hood of the vision that Bitcoin is something useful. And this is kind of the magic, bringing kind of like competitors together.
And this is super interesting. I was before in IT security job before I came into Bitcoin, and also account manager, and sometimes was at booths and stuff like that, where we know which persons came to that conference, and we're like, okay, like those people trying to do the same thing, let's not talk too much to them. And those are potential customers, let's talk more to them. So that mindset is, I don't know if it's understandable, but it's like in the fiat world. And in Bitcoin, it's totally different. When I go to conferences, this collaboration aspect is a whole different thing.
Absolutely.
I love that.
It's more protective. And I think it's like a business thinking of the 1920s, like very strong hierarchical. You know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, thank you.
Hierarchical thinking, yeah.
Thank you. And, I don't know how long, but this was like how the business world was running and is still running, like the Western world, like for 50, 60, 70 years. And that's fine. And people are, I think, either sick of it. And if they're not sick of it, I think they don't have the emotional capacity, like to go on that path, because in the end, it burns the people out, because you have to less, I don't know, excitement or passion. Yeah, like before, I had the IT company. I was in team and organizational development, like in the whole agile bubble. Yeah, so teaching people about like different styles of project management or working together. And it was my whole, like, at least from the Dachraum, that was the vibe that I got. And this is also what attracted me to Bitcoin, that people who are still like in the fiat world, and we all have like a life we want to afford, and this means like we need to earn money at some point, but we also want to change something, and we maybe want to change or switch like our like value storage to Bitcoin, and maybe also our like working style or working life. Yeah. So this kind of like, it goes hand in hand, like holding hands together. That's what I see. And that's also with the small, I don't know, the small Bitcoiners that we pay invoices to, like making the hoodies, making flyers or business cards. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's amazing to see. Really cool. What do you think is the biggest challenge that comes our way for Bitcoin adoption, Bitcoin education in the future?
Currently primed, because I had with a Landesbank, like with a banking employee, like of a major bank in Graz. And he had like the real good question, why do we need banks? Yeah, because banks have a history. He explained like why they are so scared or so really like vorsichtig about doing anything with crypto. Yeah, because it seems like they have also like a history that's not nice. Not the point. The point is, we as an Austrian company, we cannot hold Bitcoin for other companies. So we cannot do the custodianship because we are 3 people and we don't want the banking license. We don't have like the regulation part of the Austrian government like monitoring us. This is way too much effort. So for us, the thing is like we need a custodian for our customers. So we do the technical solutions, but still we need custodians. And it seems like banks won't be that. But um, I'm not very sure like about the Austrian law. But if we help, the grassroots movement, for example, like the IT guy who is like interested in Bitcoin, and he is playing, the custodian on the private sector for his bubble, for his community, for his people. I think this could be a way to go, and these people need to be like, I don't know, unterstützt, gefördert.
They need to be,
empowered.
Is like a substitute, empowered. Definitely, they need to have the right tools in their hands for that.
Yeah, the right tools, and also what does it mean legally? Like, what can they do? What's kind of like okay? Because do we need banks? This is not a question where the goal should be no, banks should eliminate it. This is just a question. What is the next, evolvement of this, And I personally think, because we are searching for custodians, maybe it's going back, that there are like a lot of small custodians taking also like the risk or the technical stuff and everything, like for their bubble. And then there's the next bubble. And then there's the next bubble. So it's kind of like a lot of like mini banks, growing up on a private sector. Yeah.
It's almost like when you're a Bitcoiner, an early Bitcoiner who has some Bitcoin, you can provide the liquidity. You can be like a bank for your region, for your community. I talked about that topic actually like a few times already, and I think it's a really interesting concept when we think about that. Banks are way more regionalized, way more smaller, way more way more customizable and personalized, and maybe for small communities. It's interesting that a global settlement layer that is for the whole world is kind of making us more connected in small communities. You almost thought like, oh, this could be. It's interesting how it goes for that.
Yeah, like in my local 21 community here in Styria, I like with some like tech IT, like let's say like programmers or IT people who like know their stuff. It's still, an effort to run your Lightning node. It's still an effort to have the channel management of Lightning. Even if you use now some promising tools where these things are like automatically hosted. I looked at GetAlbi, like their new evolution. It looks pretty nice and pretty simple, but still, you need to do all that stuff. Yeah. And how do you get this accounting layer, like for your mom, for your dad, for your cousin's friend, the friend of a friend of a friend, So I'm kind of like missing the solution there. Yeah. And nothing better if it's from a company perspective. If a company comes like to us and like, okay, and you want to accept Bitcoin perfectly, we help you with everything, but where do you want to store your Bitcoin in Lightning? But because you need this too. And there's like, no worries, we have somebody. We have somebody in the company. Okay, fine. That's what I need, because then we as a company, we're not the custodian. We cannot be. Yeah.
Maybe that's the beginning of a Bitcoin Citadel, as like real Bitcoin Citadel, where we are where we are organizing itself in smaller regional groups and smaller regional not departments, or like smaller regional groups and towns, and building those Bitcoin citadels for the future. And I mean I think the German community is really unique in that we have the 21 group that has so many meetups. It's crazy, and it's because I speak with people all over the world, from America, from Africa, and all over the world. That what we have in Germany is pretty unique, where and German speaking area, where the political level seems to not get it yet. It's a real thing, but we have so much grassroots movement, so much grassroots movement from all the people. Then in America, yeah, you also have a lot of grassroots movement, but also there's ETFs. I mean, in Europe, we also have ETFs, but there's like a huge wave also from the political level. It's really interesting how this all develops in Europe. How do you see the community aspect currently in Europe, and especially in the German speaking area?
Basically, I love it. I don't have so much an opinion because it just works, and I love it. I can go to a local meetup and people are friendly. I can go to a Zitadelle, yeah, like an Austrian. I can go to a German, and I'm like, we can talk about Bitcoin. So honestly, I love it, and it doesn't matter, if I have what I had, like somebody from a German bank who like wanted to know like how does mixing and this stuff works, or some like economical person, like we are talking about like global markets and these things. That's where like I learned, even one guy who's more like in the spiritual section and sees like energy connected to Bitcoin and everything. So there's so much there, and because all are kind of like interested making the world better and seeing Bitcoin as a tool or like a philosophy, or not a religion, but as a grassroots movement. That's like I like the community. That's what I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the original, like the actual word religion, I talked about it yesterday. Actually, I think the meaning of it is like coming together or something like that. In that way, you can, if you define it, if there's a group of people coming together, that's a religion for you. I guess Bitcoin could be a religion. We're coming together a lot, not only from like transactional layer, but also in meetups and conferences all over the world. It's crazy to go. You go to Bitcoin conferences in Abu Dhabi, America, in Prague, and you meet the same people there.
Yeah,
and we come together there. Yeah,
absolutely. It's kind of a religion without like a leader or an idolized idol.
I mean, to a certain extent, Satoshi Nakamoto is. We don't know what Satoshi Nakamoto is, if it's a person,
True.
if it's a group of people, if it's an alien, if it's a time traveler, like we have no clue. We can only speculate, but that's kind of not a leader because he doesn't lead us, but the at least a figure.
It's a myth.
It's a myth, yeah.
It's a myth. It's a myth, and he kind of like what he said is well documented, and you can like kind of decide on yourself if you have the same opinion or not. But what he started, I think it already evolved way beyond him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's
or her or groupish. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it, she, or they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also interesting to think about. I mean, I just talked about that in the yesterday's episode, but that's why it's in my head. It's interesting to think about what if all of a sudden there's like a private message signed on the Satoshi's first million Bitcoin. It's like, I'm still here or something like that. Like that would be so fun to see the community reaction to that and the memes created from that. But I personally think those Bitcoin will never move. I think if he's still alive, which I point to a very small likelihood, the keys are probably already gone. But yeah, we don't know. But that's
we don't know. And if it's stable and not moving, he kind of like deflated Bitcoin from 21 million to 20 million.
In the same way that a lot of people already deflated it with Bitcoin.
Yeah. Oh man, I love these stories. Like, oh, I had a PC and I bought it and blah 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 and everything, and like, okay, where's your PC now? Like, it's on the garbage, like somewhere. Yeah, and like, okay, let's do a calculation. How many Bitcoin did you buy, and how many hours could we search? How much is it? is it worth the effort?
Did you hear about the recent one where he got it on Ledger? He entered the PIN wrong 3 times, and the girlfriend threw away the backup seed phrase because it was on a piece of paper. Uh, that was a sad one, but yeah, it's
Ouch.
also like, why
Yeah.
do you keep your backup seed phrase on a piece of paper?
Well, there are a lot of stories, like flowing around there. Yeah.
Absolutely. I just
A
for
better story than the boating accident, actually.
yeah, and that's also a
Sorry.
thing. Like, make it as public as possible, so the IIS believes you.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, and as the more drama, the better.
Yeah, that's true. Let me see if I can find that just for just for the viewers that want to hear about because there are still people that never heard a story of like how someone lost a Bitcoin. I think that was my favorite one where I also talked on my podcast with Rick. I mean, not a favorite, like it's not like something amazing that happens in terms of losing Bitcoin, but I think it's a really great conversation uh, of like being aware that there's a lot of things that can happen, and he had a lot of Bitcoin, as he has stated, like 25 Bitcoin, and he had self custody, and he took a lot of security measurements that his setup was probably more advanced than most of the setups actually, but there are some mistakes he did along the way, and I think if you go to setup from everyone in the Bitcoin community, you will see that most of the setups are actually not as secure as they think they are. So you really have to double think like, okay, how can this get wrong? But what if that happens? And all those situations play in your head. And this is a good episode if people want to check it out, where we have a pretty advanced setup and someone that actually knew kind of what he was doing, not to the extent that he is doing now. He now is really good in it, but and to make you aware of how many things can go wrong. And there are
Yeah.
probably 5 more hours that we could record on that
Yeah.
episode
Yeah.
of what small things can go wrong. But I just want to make people aware of self custody. That's what I always try to promote as good as I can on my channel here. Really cool. One thing I want to talk to you about before we come to the end routine of the podcast is the future of Bitcoin in Europe. I'm not that into politics. Probably you are also not that into politics. But how do you see that now? America seems to steamroll ahead a little bit with Bitcoin. Even Russia is talking about Bitcoin, which is interesting to see. Also, the BRICS are talking about Bitcoin. And Europe, when they are talking about Bitcoin, it's always like, oh, like we have to protect the consumer and we don't want innovation in our thing. How do you look at the developments of Bitcoin in Europe?
Honestly, I have friends who have like I can talk about it. This is like the fortune telling, like what could happen or what could be. I have no clue. Like I'm trying to spread the message locally. If there are like regulations, of course I'm interested in like what this means, but here I'm like just a technician. I'm working on open source software, and I'm waiting until something is really like written down by the EU or the Austrian government, and maybe there are things we will like prepare, but it's not where I like put my effort. There are other people like who are more in that, where I respect if they say, hey, we should be careful, there is a warning. I love the technical aspect of Bitcoin, and that's where I will be. So I'm sorry that you're not getting a real answer about this role.
That's a good answer, anyways. I think that's like the focus on policies versus politics. I think it's a really good one to focus on not what the politicians and the EU level is doing, but more on like what are the policies that then really affect me. and what is like then real actually in the Austrian law and what is actually happening there.
Yeah, and this, like, don't get me wrong, this is not ignoring what's happening. It's just like keeping informed by people that like we trust and who make sense. This too. But if they are like if the regulations get too strict, I'm like self-employed for 17 years. I have no problem, like with closing Satoshi engineering here in Austria and reopening, for example, in El Salvador, like I'm not stuck. I'm not stuck here. Yeah. So I'm like, this is what would be like a dystopia for me, like a bad vision of the future, like to close the company and open it up somewhere else, because I grew up. I love Austria, and I have no problem, doing everything by the book and see like how far it can go. But at some point, there's a limit. Then I'm like, okay, still want to be self-employed, still want to deal with Bitcoin. Maybe it's time for me like to go abroad. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. El Salvador is interesting, but yeah.
And funny side note, that's why everyone that like from the company side that we deal with Bitcoin, or there's like a ticket or something, we ask for an invoice. We do like we have to do our like invoices and accounting properly, and to get a feeling, like how far the community is like to doing these things like how they should be. Yeah. So yeah,
that's an interesting aspect. Yeah. The invoice, especially if you get it in Bitcoin. But
yeah.
Let's come to the end routine of the podcast, where two questions. The first question is always the same for every guest, and the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
What can we from me as a person?
Yeah, from you.
For me as a person, wow. It's this tricky thing. How do I see myself? Like this tricky question. No, I think the first thing is to have like a positive attitude. Like how bad things get, go to your 21 local group and talk to people. Like, if you feel bad, find same-minded people. And if you're a Bitcoiner, go to your local Bitcoin community, and even like if they're hearing to your troubles in your fiat world, that's the one thing. And the other one is try to create a future together, whatever this means. Like we are all like, I think we as a human race are like built on passionate. Passion is what is like helps our brain like to grow and evolve and do something. So if you're passionate about Bitcoin, find another Bitcoin, try to do something together. And even if it's just, talking about it or giving in your father's living room a small what is Bitcoin thing. Yeah.
We have to do more grassroots movement things. We usually have an end routine where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. But we have that. We already did that in the middle of the episode with the question of like, what did you think about Bitcoin when you move it, when you came into what got you in, and why did you stay? So yeah, thank you so much for that also. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
I think if you just Google my name, Philipp Horwath, I'm well findable. Like from my programming side, you find me on GitHub. Professional side, you find me on LinkedIn and Satoshi Engineering, where like with my two co-founders. And I'm also like a moderator, so I'm like publicly visible. So.
Really cool. Thank you so much, Phil, for being on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Robin, thank you very much for being such a great host and well-prepared and interesting questions. You are pushing Bitcoin to a direction I like, at least. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.